Hello, and welcome to the Cinefied Podcast, the show where we enlighten you on what film to watch next by discussing the latest projects brought either to the silver screen or the comfort of your home. My name is John, and today we are discussing the highly anticipated sports/horror film Him. I'm joined today by the Cinefied editor, Connor Petrie, writer Kyle Wolf, and the reviewer for Him, Dempsey Pillow. The summary of Him is as such. A young athlete descends into a world of terror when he's invited to train with a legendary champion whose charisma curdles into something darker. A little excerpt from Dempsey's review goes a little something like, for a film so obsessed with understanding what it means to be truly great, Him, ironically, misses the mark on what is even remotely good. Woo! So that is a very scathing review of this film. We're going to talk to these three wonderful gentlemen about this movie. We're going to go ahead quickly and run down everyone's quick spoiler-free thoughts on what they thought of this film. We'll start with the man who reviewed the movie himself, Himothy, aka Dempsey. Dempsey, what do you got?
Hey, I honestly, to honest to God, I said this in the group chat before. This was one of my most anticipated movies of the year. This is before footage premiered at the CinemaCon in April. This is before like the trailer came out. Like when I found out that they were making a movie where Marlon Wayans was going to be the bad guy, I even believe, and you could probably tell because it said so much in the movie wasn't even called Him at first. It was supposed to be called Goat, but I think they had to change it because there's like an animated movie coming out called Goat. So you can do your own research on that. And obviously Jordan Peele's involvement. And I'm like, I am a Jordan Peele stan. If we're not going to get a Jordan Peele directed movie, I will gladly take a movie from Monkey Paw Productions. So like I said, I was super excited for this movie. I saw this movie in IMAX too. I went out of my way to go to an IMAX theater to watch this movie in IMAX just to be like wowed. And honest to God, it was like the biggest disappointment I've had in a very long time. And I'm not even in cinema, like in life. Okay, this movie was brutal. First 5 minutes, I felt like I was having, like I had just been attacked on a football field. Like I was getting CTE in real time with all the crazy editing. And then when the title sequence came up, I could not. I wish I would have rolled my eyes a little bit harder because then I probably would have been in a seizure for the rest of the movie, and I would have witnessed how much worse it got after that. Was not pleased with this movie. I don't think you can change my mind, but I'm eager to hear what you guys have to say.
All right, after that glowing endorsement, let's go over to Kyle. Kyle, my man, what do you think about the movie Him?
This movie came out of nowhere for me. I just found out about its existence like a month or two ago. And I was excited to see, after the trailer, I'm like, oh, okay, Marlon Wayans is doing like, moody, serious, whatever, like drama. I'm in, and it's like a weird football/horror premise. So I was immediately interested. It looks like the trailer makes it look like it's like an A24 or neon kind of, art house horror film. The movie, it isn't on that A24 neon level, so to speak, but it is very much like art house horror. It has this abstract editing, like Dempsey already mentioned, especially in the beginning. But really, I mean, throughout the movie, but it does the movie doesn't like ramp up into weird. It just starts weird and stays there for the whole time. It's really off the wall. I actually enjoyed it, but it's not it's not like a great movie that's gonna make like my favorite of the year list or like favorite horror films of the year. I didn't mind it as much as other people are. Like I know I don't know what the Rotten Tomatoes score on this is yet. I haven't looked, but
It's not good.
yeah. So I didn't think it. I appreciated like what it was doing. I think it was this seems like something that was like a premise for a short and would have worked well as a short, but it's just got like this middle part of the movie that just like drags a little bit and gets a little repetitive. It it's interesting, like I found it interesting what it was saying ultimately about like the cult of like football and like how it's treated kind of like in a religious, like people get this religious way about it. I don't know that the movie entirely, understands necessarily what it exactly wants to say about that, but um it was interesting enough for me. I didn't walk out of this movie hating it or feeling like it was one of the worst of the year or anything, but I didn't, you know, so I didn't walk out of it like that, but I also didn't walk out of it like I'm really glad I went to theaters to see this and like, it's one of the better ones of the year or anything. So that's kind of my initial reaction. I just walked out of this movie like 3 hours ago, so I'm still kind of sitting with it a little bit, but yeah.
All right, thank you, Kyle. And Connor, what do you have to say, Connor?
I think this film is just style over substance in every way. I think that it's and it's not even like good style. It's kind of like sloppy. It's always intriguing to me. I think that it never lost my interest, but I also was like, what the hell is happening? Like most of the time, because it's so jumpy. It jumps from one situation to the next situation with like very little time. It all takes place within like 6 days, and it feels like so much happens in those 6 days that it just doesn't feel like cohesive. I do think that there's some good moments in this film, but there's so far and in between all the just shockingly bad moments that just kind of makes me go, I don't think this was worth my time. So I think that this is the thing is that you have Jordan Peele who bought this script straight up, and then he must have had confidence in this script. So is it that Jordan Peele is delusional and that this script is not as good as he thought it was, or is it really the director he handpicked to direct this is where he dropped the ball? I think that the direction is where and the editing is where everything kind of went off the hill. I think that the script is most likely good. I don't believe Peele would buy a script for however much, thinking, this is okay, and the director is going to enhance it. I think the script was amazing, and then he just couldn't find the right director. I think the performances here, I think Marlon Wayans and Tyreek Withers, I believe is his name, I think they're both fantastic. I just wish they had better material. So I personally would give it a spilled popcorn on our rating system. I don't think we've gone over the ratings, but that is what I would personally give it, just straight up out of the bat.
All right, thank you, Connor. Yeah, this film for me, definitely, I will echo Connor's point: style over substance. But I do think it was actually very visually interesting. It is wrapped up in a very interesting visual package. Like even from the very beginning, when the Tyreek goes over to Marlon Wayans' compound, he's like getting submerged into the hellscape of what he's about to endure. That takes us throughout the rest of the film. So I found it visually appealing, but I think I said this in the group chat. It felt like a vapid mess because it felt like there's no real landing point it dialed in on, and it kind of went from this cool art house film for a certain part of the runtime, and then it just spilled into an exposition dump because I think the script likely got tweaked because it was like a completely different film. The last act, I feel, where everything was kind of explained to us, and it felt like it was getting dumbed down to us instead of committing to the bit of being that A24 neon adjacent horror type film. And it kind of started to play it safe just when I thought it was really on a good trajectory of becoming something more interesting. But Connor's last point leads us right into our first question, and now we're also going to go right into spoilers. But the first question, first set of questions, deals about Jordan Peele. Jordan Peele's name, brand, and production company Monkey Paw are all over the advertisements for this film. So I'm going to ask the crew here: did this create certain expectations? Should directors wanting to elevate the profile of new talent tread carefully with the marketing of these types of projects? And we'll start with Connor. Go back to you for this one, Connor.
I don't think it's I mean, it was all over. Everybody was confused thinking that this was directed by Jordan Peele. As far as like, if you're not an insider like person and you just enjoy films and you're aware of Jordan Peele, I mean, I would understand, you thinking that is Jordan Peele, because even though like this poster we have on the screen for visual people, it says producer Jordan Peele, his name is up front and center, unlike the actual director. I think the marketing here, and I mean, he's not guilty of like this, because I mean, there's a lot of other big directors that do this too. You got M. Night Shyamalan that's done it in the past. You got Spielberg. You got Tarantino. You got a bunch of like people that do this. But I do think it's misleading, and I do think that when you put your name on a project, it does, and then it doesn't turn out. I do think that does kind of mess with your credibility a bit, as far as the projects that you later on could be choosing to direct yourself. But I mean, I personally think that this is just a marketing failure in a lot of ways, because it just ultimately just obviously didn't hit the way that they wanted it to.
I would also say it kind of seems like that old saying, the old expression, a rising tide raises all ships. And so when you have a brand name that's got pretty global recognition like Jordan Peele, that comes with an expectation. And, I think Peele is leveraging his name to help out budding artists, as, I think, giving it back to the community a little bit, but also to your point, Connor, I agree. It's like, I think this was a misfire to put Jordan Peele out in front of this thing and say, hey, if you like me, you'll like this. So, Kyle, what do you think?
Do we has Monkey Paw or him done many other movies aside from producing his own stuff? And
yes, I had the same question, Kyle. I pulled up.
Yep.
They've done the Candyman remake from a few years ago. They also did Black Klansman. Their first official movie was actually the Keanu movie with the talking cat, and Monkey Man, last year's Monkey Man. So they've done quite a bit. They've done a couple of other smaller indie stuff, but this seems to be like the first like major original horror movie that's created or produced by Jordan Peele that he hasn't directed.
Okay. So, well, and that's a good track record then too, which is what I started to wonder that as soon as Connor, I think it was talking about like his name being attached to this, and about if he bought it, it's a good script then. So I was like, well, do we have anything to base that off of, like any experience or whatever? So yeah, he has a good track record then, because those are good movies. I mean, not so much Candyman in my opinion, but yeah, I mean, this is something that's done all the time. Like Connor already said, like you see Scorsese's name attached, Spielberg, all of them. And if you're not paying attention and see the produced by or from producer, then a lot of people make the mistake of thinking it is. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with like coworkers or friends, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is the new Tarantino film." I'm like, "No, it's produced by." So it's, a different director. I think the script probably was really good for this, and that it's probably a direction thing and editing thing, but he could have, maybe he should have chose a different director. Just it can create certain expectations, but I don't know. It's like I said, it happens all the time. So I didn't really, sometimes they're great and sometimes they're not. And then how much is he really involved? Like, because there's producers that are more involved than others, like with certain projects. You've like the Spielberg Poltergeist. Thank you. God damn.
Toby Hooper.
Sorry, yeah, the Toby Hooper Spielberg thing. Like, there's all this over all this time it's built up. It's essentially like saying like it's come out like Spielberg basically directed Poltergeist. Like it was such a passion project. He really wanted to make it, but he was making, I think it was E.T. at the same time. And like technically he couldn't direct that also, but he essentially did. So, there's producing on that kind of level. And then there's just like, I think this is a good script. I got a good guy in mind for this, like throw him a bone kind of thing.
All right. Dempsey.
So, one thing I also found out, so I do think it is a major script issue. And I'm so glad that you pointed out, John, that the major shift and exposition change in like the last 10 minutes of the movie, because it did feel like I was watching a different movie, and it did kind of shift my ideas of what I think was happening to like, oh no, you're totally wrong. This is actually what's really happening. So the movie was actually a Blacklist script. It was one of the best Blacklist unproduced scripts of like 2022. Written by the two guys at the bottom, Skip Bronke and Zach Akers. Those two guys wrote the original script. Justin Tipping came in as the director, and I think it's very evident he did the rewrites or any rewrites to the script. So any changes, I've never read the original script. I don't think any of you guys have, but I can only imagine that the changes that made it go from like one of the best unproduced scripts to like the thing that we all saw this weekend at the movie theaters must have been the director's doing. And I'm shocked because I actually like this director. He did this great movie, interestingly, like a decade ago, called Kicks. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's a great coming of age movie. It has Mahershala Ali in it. This kid gets his sneakers stolen, and he spends a day with his friends trying to get them back in like the urban area of California. It's a really cool kind of film. It also treads like the fantasy, not fantasy, but like realistic, or creative realism or whatever how you want to call it. And it was a really like fascinating movie when I saw it a decade ago. I was like, oh my God, this guy's really talented. He was, I believe, at one point even in talks to be one of the directors of Shang-Chi or some other Marvel movies. Like this guy was really on the up for quite some time. So the fact that, when you narrow all of the things that we spoke about down, that the fact that all of the weird changes in this movie might have been him, I don't know. It kind of bums me out if I'm being real. In regards to the Jordan Peele thing, I don't think that Jordan Peele needed to have his name on this movie necessarily. This may be a controversial take, but I think Marlon Wayans is still a relatively big star on his own to get people into seats. And I don't know if you guys have saw his reaction to the movie this weekend, where he's basically saying, I don't agree with critics, but I don't disagree with them either. Art is subjective. If you want to see this movie, or if you want to read the reviews, but still decide for yourself, that's what you should do. I think he's a very articulate guy. He's a very talented guy, as this movie also proves. I think he's like the best thing in this movie, even though it's not the greatest thing in the world. I think Jordan Peele putting his stamp, his name on it, was really like a stamp of approval, or stamp of support rather, to say, hey, like, if you guys like, I'm producing it, but if you guys want my name on it, I'll help. I think when you guys said like the rising tide helps elevate it. I think if anything, he thought it would be like an elevated tactic, but I don't think it hurts the film, but I do think it hurts Jordan. I say all that to say, if that makes sense,
It does. But I will disagree to your point a little bit, Dempsey, about, putting Marlon out front solo, because you have, was it Tyreek Williams?
Tyreek Withers.
Excuse me. Tyreek Withers. Very up and coming guy from my hometown, actually. Is pretty cool. And then you have Marlon Wayans. yes, Marlon Wayans is a household name, 100%. But I think the public that knows him, that has not aged out already, will recognize him for his comedic roles. More because he's done way more heavy or comedy roles. There you go, English comedy roles than he has done dramatic roles. He's proven himself. Like the guy's got chops, no mistake about it. But I think because it's kind of it's a niche pocket to have him in this dramatic context, and I think with Jordan Peele because Jordan Peele for the longest time was the funny guy on Comedy Central too, started making these really crazy movies that were not comedic. So I think that was kind of the impetus with Peele's name out front, because where Wayans is a proven name, Peele is a proven name with these types of films. Not everyone has seen Requiem for a Dream. I don't think not everyone should see Requiem for a Dream. It's a very heavy movie, as good as it is. That's that. Like I agree with everything else you're saying, Dempsey. That's the one thing I might challenge you on a little bit, but I do see where you're coming from, though. But we're gonna move on real quickly. So, and this is gonna be a free for all. Anyone can jump in and talk going forward. So the messages of this film, someone already said it earlier, they kind of come off as abstractions, and it's unclear how we should feel about what is going on. Other moody films that are about aspiring to glory, such as Whiplash and Black Swan, are more obvious with their intent. How did him fall short of doing the same thing, or did it not fall short? What do we think? Open floor.
I don't know if it's just going to be me, but so obviously I've said this before. Actually, I like films that are like where it's about a person that's like got an obsession, like they're obsessed. Like I love Black Swan. That's a good example of that. Whiplash as well, of course. But I thought this movie was more in line with like the substance, for me, like just with certain things, like especially the ending. I didn't get so much like Black Swan or Whiplash too much out of this, but I definitely think, I mean, enough to where it makes sense to bring these up with this question. But I was just curious real quick if anyone else got substance vibes.
I did not, but that is interesting though.
I got substance vibes a little bit, but nowhere near as deeply as I got, Whiplash and Black Swan. But they all kind of carry similar themes. So do you feel like this film kind of landed well in discussing those themes?
It's tough. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because like this movie is like he really wants to be the best or whatever. Like he wants to be the GOAT, like because but it's more like everyone wants him to be the GOAT. It's not so much that he wants that for himself. It was like ingrained in him from his father, and then just with his success, like everyone else around him just like kind of telling him that, and that's what he should aim for. So it wasn't, I don't know, it's just interesting. The more I pick at this movie.
Going off your point, Kyle, if I can jump in real quick,
please.
I was thinking about what you was just saying, and how it feels like, yes, he was kind of groomed, as they very obviously and overtly explained at the end of the film. He was groomed to be this guy later in life, so it was kind of like he was predestined to do this. But the whole time, it's like he's never really given the answers. It's just like,
right,
you got to do more. You have to do this. You have to do that. Oh no,
yeah,
don't do that. That's the wrong thing to do. And it's like it's never really a clear lane to go down for him. And so I thought that was kind of puzzling, because I couldn't jump on the ride with him. It felt like.
Right. Yeah, that's I don't know, I was just thinking about it. It's like the scene towards the beginning. Probably one of the first like oh shit moments was when he's training, like he's at his football field at night before. It's like the night or a night or two before the combine, and he's just throwing the football, hitting the poles, and then the football's just spinning on the floor on the ground, and he goes to like pick it up, and then all of a sudden you see someone behind him hit him in the head. You're like, what the fuck?
It's
Like,
definitely his coach, which is like
Yeah.
the most frustrating thing, because I'm like, they're gonna show us like a person with in a very specifically large size disappear into the shadows, and then another mysterious figure
Yeah.
wearing a crazy costume. Like,
right.
who else would know he's there? Like, that's one of the things that frustrated me. I was like, and to your, I totally forgot about the spinning football.
Yeah.
Because that introduces that there's going to be some sort of supernatural element in this.
Mhm.
And the whole movie is full of like, oh, this thing is happening and you don't know what's going to happen, and we're going to build up to it. Just you wait. It's going to be great. All for freaking Tim Heidecker to just come out and be like, nah, man, nah, we had this all planned. Everything you thought was wrong.
See,
That pissed me off.
what I was thinking the whole time, as soon as the guy hit him in the head on the field at night, I was like, oh, he is dead and he is in hell.
That would be
Yeah.
a much greater movie.
Like,
That would be awesome.
I
Actually.
was
Damn it.
I was on that roll for a while. I was like, oh, this is gonna pay off big, even bigly. But no, that's not what happened. But
oh my god, I like that so much better. I wish.
me too. I was so
And
disappointed
I didn't
when I
even
was
hate
wrong.
this movie. Like, I didn't hate this movie or think it was as bad as you guys did. But
Yeah, I didn't think it was the coach. I
didn't either.
Completely went over my head if
That's
that is the case. But the football thing had me go, okay, so yeah, like you were saying, it's supernatural esque, and then I'm like, this is just some weird creature. But then I'm like, did something happen like where it's just like, because he throws the football and hits the goalpost, and then it's just like after that, then it cuts, and then you see the football spinning. So then I'm like, did he like throw the football and it ricocheted back and like knocked him in the head, and that's how he got his concussion or something? I'm like, how did he logically get this concussion? Because like I was just like, there's most likely the way that I thought the movie was going to go, it's most likely all just in his head. Because I fully thought, based on the advertising, that this was going to be a whole allegory, metaphor, whatever, for having a concussion and the dangers of football.
Another great idea.
Well, let me finish where I was getting at with bringing that
Fine.
part up. So like, so that scene happens, and then he's in the chair. I think this is what happens next, but it either happens next or very shortly after. He's in the chair, like looking at his phone. The guy's like giving him a haircut, even though he says he thinks he is fine. He doesn't need a haircut. And then you get this moment where his phone is pinging constantly. So like he's overwhelmed and kind of like out of it. Like, what is happening? Like, I'm here in this moment. All these people are talking. I've got my phone going off like crazy. And then they start to argue a little bit about like what he wants or what's best for him, or, whatever's being said. And he freaks out after he gets clipped with the stitches, like the clippers, kind of nick his stitches on his head from where he got hit. And so like, that was kind of a moment where I was like, does he even, like, that's where the first moment set in, where I was like, does he really want this? Like, or is he just still doing it because that's what he was kind of he's been groomed for his whole life?
I mean, I don't think he wanted it at that point. I think he's just doing it just because he knew that he was going to let everybody down. And if he stopped, he was going to ultimately let everybody down. More than himself. So, and
that seems to be like we've seen like movies like that before, right? Like other sports movies, or just like, or documentaries or something, that's not an uncommon thing where it's, you're good at this. You've been this is what you've been groomed for. Just keep doing it.
And then he could have kind of like because he mentions to Marlon's character that he told his dad that he didn't want to do football anymore. And then like 2 weeks later, his dad dies. So he might link that when he disappoints someone, they die or something like that. Who knows like what his mental process is.
That was a strange part because he's talking about, he's revealing that moment with his dad, like, and he says that he wanted to quit football, and it, you would think when he's telling that story that he's saying like, and then my dad died like, a couple days or a week later or something, but then it was actually months later. He said, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess that was like the last bad thing you said to him. I don't know.
The only theme I could really derive and pull is like this abstraction of not chasing a destiny that you don't want, where he was like kind of, groomed for this one thing, and he confessed when he was having that tearful monologue, like, hey, I never wanted this, and I betrayed my daddy. So I think he's just performing out of guilt, and to be the GOAT. But I think at the end, his, spoilers, his massacre of everyone at the end is him like rejecting that fate he does not want for himself. Like, I think it's cool, like in a way of like, nah, man, I'm going to live my own life, Dad, but right. I think it was very slipshod and poor in its execution. And I think that theme was lost because the hype was about him, like capital H, like,
yeah, no, you're right. That's where, like part of the issues with the film is it like, it doesn't go full force in that direction or like make that statement that it's ultimately trying to make. Cause that's what like the whole, in my opinion, at least, like, the, one of the surprising aspects of this movie is it Jim Jeffries? Is that his name?
Yes, the comedian.
Him showing up in this movie.
Yeah, he was really good. That's the thing. It's everybody in this film, opposed to Julia Fox, is fantastic. I think Julia Fox is just kind of there. So, but go ahead, go on, Kyle.
Yeah, well, no, you're fine. It's just so it gets, it doesn't nail its, message or whatever. But that's what the whole, like, in my opinion, like the run thing is with Jim Jeffries, like when he's like constantly trying to tell him like, get out of here. And then he's giving him the shot, like the injections throughout the movie. And the last one that he ends up like putting into his chest himself there at the end, it says run on the needle. So I think it was like the movie's way of saying like, run from this. You don't want it. Like, you don't have to do this.
Run and not get out.
Yeah.
I totally linked that it was that. So like Jim Jeffries was basically that guy that ran up to him and get out and was like, get out. So, but yeah, no, I thought that was, to me, just to jump into this, I was kind of like, how is this film going to turn itself around? Like, obviously I saw how it was negatively received, and I was just like, but maybe it's just people don't like the way that they rounded things out, but maybe I'll like the way that they concluded and explained everything, because it's very heavy handed and very visually all over the place, but it's appealing at the same time. And then when Jim Jeffries' character dies, and then it's just like that day, I was just like, I'm out. Because like everything after that point, I was just like, what the fuck is happening? So I was just like, because I was like, oh, this is clearly in his head. And because of how it's all like, they're at the party, he's throwing up like jewelry. And then it's just like, but then they established that it's not in his head, because it cuts to like reality and Julia Fox like with a knife, like, and I was just like, what's happening? And you know what, John, is that I was thinking that this movie reminded me of the structure of like The Home, because The Home is very like heavy handed on the visuals, and then it's very easy to understand what they're going for, but they don't know how to like properly depict what they're going for. And then the last like 15 minutes is just like balls to the wall of like, fuck it. So
yeah, the end of The Home, if y'all haven't seen that Pete Davidson film where he's like goes to work in a mental asylum or something, it's kind of speed runs a lot of the plot of him in a way, like stealing the essence of somebody, giving it to somebody else, and then Pete Davidson goes on a killing spree at the end, which was arguably the most interesting part of that film because it wasn't scary or mysterious or suspenseful any other way, any other time. But thanks for making me remember that movie, Connor.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
I just had I get so for the most part, you guys kind of got what I think the film, like the more obvious parts of the film that I also kind of got that kind of twisted me up. I from the get-go, I thought it was going to be like a dream. And then the more I watched it, all the imagery kind of gave me the idea that this movie was actually a metaphor for religion. And the other poster you guys didn't see because we settled on this one.
I'll get there.
The arms out. He's very, very much supposed to be like Jesus Christ with his arms out. I think that, like the whole. That's what I was leaning towards. I was like, okay, this movie's a metaphor for like how culty religion can be. I know we spoke about the film talking about cults, but I think this film is really asked the question. There's one of my favorite film critics actually said this. His Letterboxd review is literally like, "What if football was God?" You know, and that's exactly what this movie is. It's like everybody treats it like it's this delicate thing, but then we get to the scene where he's sitting and he's about to make the deal with all those old men. And then I'm like, wait, that's not what this movie's about at all. And then I took it to like a whole nother level because I was extra like this. And even though it was absolutely wrong, I was like, oh my God, this is a commentary on how football is like modern slavery and all the teams are owned by white people and all the players are black. And I was like, oh my God, this might be brilliant. They might actually nail this. And then after that, that's like flashed at you. They're like, oh, this could be what the movie's about. And then, like I said, Tim from Tim and Eric comes out and says, nah, man, we've been grooming you for years. That's what this movie's really about.
So hang on, Dempsey. No. I think you're onto something. Did they pull it off? Fuck no. But I think you're onto it because like the rejection of like the shackles of entertainment and contractual needs to fill a role that you don't want to do. That was like the end was his rejection of that.
Yes.
Cameron Cade's rejection of doing those things. And it was just not well done. And I'll get to this part later on in the podcast, but I felt like they had the ingredients and the conditions to really sell that point or something along those lines of that point or that message. But it was just too flimsy. And it kind of wanted to have it both ways, like be mysterious and art housey and be Hollywood and mainstreamy at the same time. Or it did like this weird mid pivot to land on the Hollywood side of things. And I was like, what are we doing? Anyway.
One last point I just want to make. I do think I had to sit down and actually write down the plot. And if you actually just take out the whole Marlon Wayans part, like they did not need to have him go through this training facility. Like if they really just wanted to sign him, they could have just signed him from the beginning. They didn't have to injure him and then have this whole thing at the beginning. I think unless they wanted to weed out Marlon Wayans' character, right? That's what it seems like.
Well, they explained that. They explained that with one line of dialogue that justified him missing the combine, but still not being signed yet. Because they're like, oh, he's got all this tape. He has all this credibility. That's what his agent was saying in the press room. But like, I think it was Marlon Wayans' character. It's been a few days since I've seen the film. Is basically saying like, owner's not going to part money with unknown product or however he said it. I'm paraphrasing horribly, but I think I hear what you're saying, but I think they did cover that.
Your paraphrase wasn't horrible. That's essentially what was said.
Okay,
but I can't remember if it was him or his or Julia Fox's character, which I don't know if that's his wife or his girlfriend. I can't remember, but it was either him or her that said that to him, like that. You know,
it was him.
Yeah, and I think they were trying to get him like cheaper or something. Yeah, I mean, I viewed this more as like because of football, being on Sundays and just how crazy like people can and obsessed people can get with it. It's treated like a religion itself, and like that's kind of what he's rejecting at the end. Like all the people, all the white dudes there, it's like the owners of the team,
The
its
Saviors, the
agent,
name of
yeah.
the team.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like just go
Very
along
on the
with this,
nose.
keep going. Yeah, for sure. And they're wearing pig masks, even more on the nose. Like
Isaiah White. Come on, guys.
Yeah, that too.
They're spoon feeding it too. That's my problem. They're spoon feeding it to us.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty obvious, but
Okay, well, we're speaking of Marlon Wayans, Isaiah White. We're gonna pivot away from the themes and messaging and just talk about our two front runners or two main characters. I think this film was carried by two very good performances, especially Marlon Wayans and Withers. Excuse me. How do we all respond to like their dynamic and their presentation and their performances with this film?
I thought they were. I'll go first. I thought their bond seemed pretty good. I do think that just the way the film is cut together, that it does feel a little all over the place, their relationship to me, because it does feel like he is very he's genuinely really nice to him at one time, and he's a complete asshole to him another. But I think when they're having like a genuine nice bond and everything, I think that their connection seems legit to me, and it seems like a good dynamic between the two. And even like when he is being kind of an asshole, I did like the dynamic between him when they're setting up the football rig to go off and hit the guy in the face over and over, and he's just like, come on, dude, come on, like that whole thing. But then I didn't really. I guess they mentioned briefly, and this is just because this was in my head when we were talking about the previous section. They mentioned briefly that Jim Jeffries states that only one can come out basically alive in the end. And so that's what he tells to him. And so when they have like the battle thing in the jersey room and whatnot, I was just like, this came out of left field to me. But also at that point, I was out of it anyway, because I was just like, what the fuck's happening? So, but performance wise, I thought they were good. I just thought that I think it's the direction that ultimately hurt them, because I just think the way that it's edited together is just makes it feel not stitched together properly.
Yeah, I mean, like, Marlon Wayans' character, he's there to vet the new kid, see what he's made of, because he needs to groom a successor, because the dude, he's got 8 championship titles, 8 rings, and his contract's a year from expiring. Like he's not on his way out. And I think that mentor student dynamic was it does ebb and flow, like you were kind of saying, Connor. It's like, hey, let's be buddies. Hey, I'm gonna push you to to depths you've never been to before. Hey, I'm gonna be kind of ethically and morally gray on a lot of things. And hey, maybe I set you up with my wife or whoever, and I challenge you and pushed you with that just to see where your character is made of. And I thought it was like Marlon Wayans is definitely, I think Dempsey said it earlier, the best part of this film. He carried this film definitely on his shoulders. But I think Tyreek Withers there's something to be said. I know he's a newer voice, newer face, but like he still asked to do a whole lot. And he's 6'5", he's lean, he's a good looking kid, like very athletic, he sells the part of like a high prospected quarterback. But he's also asked to do a lot more, like break down, have a monologue, do all these things. I think they worked off of each other very well.
And I think his performance here is, I mean, it's also that it's just, and I'm going all over the place because the material here is also not very good. But then again, the film he was in previous this year, I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is like a guilty pleasure type movie for me, but that script is awful. So that's fully the material's fault that he gave a bad performance in that movie. But so it's just like when you see that, like his performance in that to me, I think was terrible. And then you see him in this, you're like, oh, he is a good actor. He just needs better material to work off of.
Was I the only one watching him? I was like, he has like the same kind of charisma as like Channing Tatum. Like I was like, I liked it. Like this guy, all right, I can't subjectively say if he's a great actor, but he's not bad, and he has a lot of charisma. And I think all of the conversations he has with Marlon, despite the awful dialogue, okay, about Julia Fox saying, "Oh, stick it in your butthole." Or no, my favorite piece of dialogue.
I thought you said awful dialogue. I thought you said awful dialogue.
What do you? Yeah, no. My despite the script, my favorite piece of dialogue that still has me effed up because I still don't understand what it means is when they're in the sauna, and he's like, man, I'm paraphrasing too because I couldn't pull out my phone quick enough because I was still trying to process what the hell he said. And he says, if you're in prison and they offer you, I think it's
freedom or food
or freedom.
Yep.
Are you even free, or are you even in prison? Or what does he say? Because
what choice is there? What choice do you have?
Yes. Do you even have a choice or something like that? And I was like,
doesn't make sense.
I was like so baffled, and I tried to remember, and I was like, wait, no matter how you write this does not make sense.
I think it was a callback to the other question, or earlier question you asked them when they're in the training field, or like, would you rather never get tired or never get injured? I think it was one of those metaphorical, no answers to.
Is that a colloquialism? I don't know.
Yeah,
I just want to be fancy.
And then he did it again when they're shooting in the shooting range, and he's like, "How about if you lose, I steal your youth?" And then that was another moment when I was like, "Oh, so that's what this movie's about." And then the guy's like, "Nah, I'm gonna earn it," and he just kills the guy. And I'm like, "Okay, so what's happened?" Like,
I thought that was a breadcrumb to something bigger for later.
Nope, not at all.
But also, I think to the point, the dialogue was really weird. Like he kept dropping this line, "I'm gonna go watch some tape. I'm gonna go watch some tape," over and over again. I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna pay off big. This is gonna lead to some big, reveal later." And it was just him. So I try to rationalize and reconcile what that phrase kept meaning, because he sells it. Like, I'm like, "Oh, it seems a little nefarious. What do you mean you're gonna go watch tape? A tape of what? Like your own highlights, you dumbass. Like, you're a champion. What are you talking about?"
It's just the eye.
But like, it was when he's laying back, he's watching the screen of all the people cheering him on, or just a blank applause. I guess I was like, this is what the tape of being a GOAT looks like. You're always getting praise. You're always getting propped up. You're always getting your butt spanked because everyone loves you. And I don't know. I think. Go ahead.
No, to your point, I thought that's what you were talking about when you said about like, the movies about like how we digest entertainment. With the tape is like the shape of an eye.
Yeah,
isn't it? And that's something that's the one thing I was like, oh, maybe Jordan Peele did have a hand in making this, because it's very Nope coded with the creature looking like a giant eye in that movie, and that whole movie being about spectacle. So that's the one actual connection I could make to another Jordan Peele movie from this. But other than that, I agree, it had no payoff.
Yeah, I think I said something about being a top prospect from the draft, getting ready to go into the pros, and then filling the shoes of a proven champion. Yeah, you're in the fishbowl all the time, and you have all these expectations at your feet and on your shoulders, really, to be him. You have to be the GOAT. Otherwise, why are you here? And so, I don't know. But I thought the performances were very strong. And the script was a big mess, I think they did the best they could with what was provided.
Marlon Wayans does with a gun in this movie. You guys will never be able to.
I was wondering if someone was gonna bring that up. I was like, oh wow, he did just do that.
And is it clear? Is bold. Is it clear that if Tyreek's character like slept with Julia Fox's character, I think that he says he doesn't, but they don't, like, he could just be, yeah. No, and then the whole gun situation was something.
That was
Yeah,
wild.
it was kind of unnecessary.
If the
honestly.
movie, like if the script was really good, like if this movie was getting like the opposite of praise, if it was like a much better movie than it actually is, I could legitimately see that being like his Oscar clip. Like if he got nominated, because like that is just like one sequence. Like, whoa.
I certainly wasn't expecting it. That's for sure.
Yeah, that dude wants some spit added. That's all you'll walk away knowing with that.
Well,
he expects some spit.
speaking of Oscars and how they typically only award certain types of films, this film, like I was trying to say earlier, kind of begins and projects itself to be this art house thing, and then before it kind of just pivots sharply into this, Hollywood. Let me make sure the audience. I play down to the dumbest member of the audience to reveal every plot detail and explanation we have, so no one misses a beat. What's the consensus among the group? Do we feel like this film should have stayed in the lane of being this art house adjacent, more like art house wannabe, but art house adjacent film, or should have just been more direct on the nose? Hey, this is a film about succeeding a champion and the expectations that come with that in a more Hollywood traditional context.
I mean, I'll keep it short. I think it should just drop the whole art house thing and gone more typical. But that's just not, when you see Peele's name, he's not going to have everything be very just upfront. And I would imagine that'd be the case for everything he produces going forward too. It's not going to be all just like upfront and center, but it's just a matter of how they handle things. And I think that they should have just went more straightforward with this versus art house. But that's just me.
Okay, so you feel that so my answer to that would, not my answer, but my additional question to that, to bring into that, my extra aspect to consider with that question would be, what do you feel it did the best, with the art house aspect or the straight kind of direct on the nose? We want to make sure the audience understands, let's spoon feed, would be, so I think I don't know. I would have liked to seen it personally go more art house. I was fine with it being abstract and everything, but maybe you guys feel it did the on the nose direct stuff better.
I actually think that the film's biggest problem is that it's not that it doesn't choose a lane, it chooses both lanes.
Right.
Like it wants to be ambiguous, but then it's also going to tell you what it's about, which cancels it out being ambiguous and makes the whole thing seem dumb, which is why I'm so freaking frustrated, because I feel like I feel like I love ambiguous movies. Like even like it could be the worst movie in the world, but as long as it's like absolutely up to interpretation, then you can have so much more fun with it. You'd be like, okay, I don't care. All right, it was technically bad, acting was bad, but maybe that was done intentionally. Who knows, But when you have all these weird things like a spinning football at the beginning, right? An implied dream sequence. You have all this religious symbolism, and then but at the end you tell us, oh, no, none of that's important. Actually, this movie is about, we groomed this kid. His dad was sacrificed. There is some sort of supernatural stuff, but we're not going to explain that. We're going to tell you all this other stuff that you should probably know just so that you can understand it. It ruins the fun, and it ruins like the whole point of movies, which is to be art. It takes the art out of the art. If that makes sense. I'm sorry. That's what I was going to say.
No, you're right, Dempsey. To your point, it wants to have it both ways, and it didn't commit. What's so frustrating is if it stayed, it had the conviction to stay in the wheelhouse of being an art house film with abstract themes that are open for interpretation. That all four of us will take something different out of it. Like even if it wasn't the greatest film, I would have respected it that much more. And like Jordan Peele's films, like I'm not the biggest fan. I like all three of his films, but I'm not like a huge champion for them either. But I respect the fact that he just committed, start to finish, the tone of his films and how he chooses to present his stories. And this one, like the last third, my jaw was on the floor because I was so upset that they just gutted the whole story and said, "Here, this is what we're actually doing the whole time." You know, all the symbolism and all the other supernatural aspects, if they even were those things, are dismissed or ignored completely because they don't matter anymore. We threw the baby out with the bathwater at the last act, and it was very disappointing.
So which lane do you wish it would have stayed in? Personally,
The art house,
right? What
because
about
even
you?
go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
no, sorry, no. I was going to say, what about you, Connor?
I mean, I personally would probably like it to be more straightforward, but I'm
Oh, yeah.
less of an art house person.
Okay.
That's fair. Well, I did want to touch on the symbolism and stuff, but more so in line, not just with like the overt and sometimes subverted symbolism that was presented, but I know not everyone that I've heard from so far agrees with me, but I thought this film was very visually appealing. That's one of the strongest aspects I felt the film gave me was its very unique style of visual language. The colors, the cinematography, I thought was really not innovative per se, not like award worthy, but it was definitely way more interesting than the story itself. So, but did these, symbolic and visual takes kind of influence how you received the film, as simple as it seemed to be?
I think it did for sure with me. I am with you, John, on the visuals, like appreciating the visuals. I even liked the opening credits, like how it was like it's like half of the screen, like half of the bottom portion of the image was like camera negative or whatever. I liked the scene when he hits the other football player, like when they're doing some practice games or whatever, he hits them and it goes into like X-ray vision. So there's like some really cool visuals in this movie that I appreciated. So it's got some wacky editing here and there, but for me, it didn't feel like it derailed it and frustrated me or anything.
Sick.
I mean, I think that the visuals are cool. I just don't think that. I personally think that you can have cool visuals, but it doesn't make a cohesive or like fantastic film. I mean, just look at Transformers. So like any of the ones besides the first one, they look beautiful. They're not good movies. so it's you can have fantastic visuals and piss poor writing or direction. But I mean, I personally, I really liked some of the visuals quite a bit. I liked the neon kind of glow that was encompassing some of the scenes. I also liked like when after Jim Jeffries gives him like one of his first injections, or maybe his first one, and then he's like sitting in the ice bath, and then the lighting gets like dark and blue around him. I really like that shot. I mean, it has cool shots, but it's just I've seen so many people that saw it at like Fantastic Fest stating how it feels like basically a music video, like music video shots. So, and I can see that. I also think that that's one of the things too is that the visuals feel. I keep using the word cohesive, but they feel like they're part of the same movie for the most part. And then I think the last like 15 minutes just feels like a different movie to me. Like when they're out on the ball field and everything, and there's like the massacre and whatnot, it doesn't feel like the same movie to me. But maybe that's just me.
No, fair. Dempsey, what do you got?
Well, it's funny Connor said the music video thing because the whole time I was like, I wonder if this director has ever done music videos. And to my research, as far as I know, I don't think he has. But it did feel like a music video at times. It had that choppiness, and the soundtrack was cool enough, and the way the editing flowed with some of the song picks made it seem like a music video at times. I like the composition of shots. I'm in the same camp as Connor, where you could see the way certain things were framed, the way certain things were lit. But I'm not a fan of the aesthetic, because the aesthetic is not anything new. The aesthetic is something that Jordan Peele and A24 have kind of already laid the groundwork for. This feels like a deliberate replica of them. It doesn't do anything new to push them. It kind of feels like it's definitely profiting from that, or hoping to profit, and it's something that marketing used to its favor to help sell the movie. If you, I don't know what it did at the box office, if it sold anything, but yeah, that's where I stand. I admire what it tries to do, but it all feels empty.
Yeah, I'll say like the posters and the trailers that I saw, I really wasn't interested in the visual language of the film, like, because to your point, Dempsey, it calls back a little bit to what we've seen already from Jordan Peele or A24, or and so I was kind of sold a bill of goods on this whole different kind of story that's going to be very interesting and gripping because the visuals were very appealing. And I think, I said this in review. If anyone watched that film from last year, The Watchers, rough. Shyamalan's daughter made this film, and what I said about her film is what I'll say about this. It's just about Justin Tipping. I think he has an eye for a camera, but I think now he needs to have an eye for a story with his next project. But yeah, so speaking of the box office, it had $27 million budget, and as of right now, the global intake from this weekend, final numbers are still coming in, but globally about 13.5 million box office. So it's got some hill to climb still to break even. So if nothing else, it'll be a very interesting learning curve for Jordan Peele and Monkey Paw, I would argue.
Do you think if they would have went for a more international audience and made this about football versus football, it would have worked out better?
I think the rating's the problem. I don't think this movie needed to be rated R.
No.
There's like one boob in the entire movie.
No, there's a couple boobs,
No,
but
yeah,
they're all in
there
one
is.
shot.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Not that I was
Lord.
looking for that. I wasn't looking for that, okay? But I'm
Okay,
just
sure.
saying.
It wasn't too gratuitous. I think like the amount of violence, as excessive as it kind of got towards the end, I think a lot of it could have been edited out a certain way or framed
Yeah.
a certain way to where it's more implied than shown. And you give Marlon Wayans like one good F-bomb somewhere, and everything else can be just like, whatever. But they were dropping all kinds of language from the jump. So I mean, and I think that tied to the authenticity of the sport and the locker room and that kind of lifestyle. So I think that was a good selling point to use the language. But besides that, I think it could have done pretty, not gangbusters as PG-13, but definitely better than 13.5.
I don't know if football movies in general do very well at the box office, though. I mean, I coming to mind like I personally really not at all the same genre, but football related, Draft Day with Kevin Costner, that did terrible at the box office, and that was PG-13. And I mean, that was football, and they released it at the same time, like in like 2016 or whatever, and it bombed as well. So
Also,
it's just kind of like
Good movie, though.
Yeah, it was a Blacklist script too, which is interesting.
oh really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like the #1 Blacklist script that year that it was released. So
Yeah. No, but it's a fun movie. It's a lot more fun than this one.
Yeah, Draft Day is like a comfort movie for me. I think
Mhm.
Ivan Reitman made it, director of Ghostbusters. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
liked it. It's not a great movie, really, at all, but it's fun.
Makes you root for the Browns.
No, it doesn't. Nice try, Connor. All right, so here at Cinefied, we have a particular rating system in scores of popcorn buckets, whereas a full popcorn bucket is a must-see grade for a must-see film. A half is a maybe, a half-filled popcorn bucket, and then a mistake, an empty popcorn bucket for that film that is just not that great, is not deserving of your money or your attention and time. So we're going to go down the list here, guys, and let's give our ratings for the film. We'll start with Kyle.
It's a half for me.
All right. Any final thoughts? We'll do ratings and we'll do a few final thoughts. Nothing like maybe 30 seconds, just kind of wrap up.
Yeah, it's a half for me. I enjoyed it enough to where, I wouldn't say go out into the theaters and see it, but, check it out when it comes out on streaming or rent at home. Marlon Wayans' performance, with the short time I'm gonna, 30 seconds of this, is really the only reason I'll say that, is worthy of watching this movie. He and Tyreek Withers, they're both really good. The performances are this film's biggest strength, hands down. I don't think any of us are gonna have disagreed on that. So, yeah, it's a half for that reason, in and of itself for me.
All right, Connor.
I'm going to stick with the spilled popcorn. I just don't think there's enough here to really warrant to watch. I do think that Marlon and Tyreek have really good chemistry together. I think their performances are really good, but it's just there's really nothing here. I feel like even diehard football fans won't find anything here. But with my little bit, I do want to comment on the last act real quick and the fact that Julia Fox just gets up and trips on a knife that comes out of nowhere. Where the hell did that knife come from that stabbed her in the neck? But
she grabbed it.
Oh, she grabbed it and then tripped over herself and stabbed herself in the neck.
She grabbed it from the table that she was sitting at, because she was saying like, "Oh, I have to do it myself. Like, I'll get him to sign myself." And then she grabs it, and then that's when she gets up and trips.
But it's not very good in frame when she takes it. I'll give you that, Connor. Because At first I was like, what does she pick up from the table? And then she tripped and I saw it.
Okay.
All right, Dempsey, what you got?
So I don't know, guys. Talking about this movie, I think that the Holy Spirit, has entered me and inspired me to give a different rating to this movie, which is a brand new rating for this site, which is there's a hole at the bottom of the popcorn bucket, and there's just no popcorn at all because this movie's awful. This movie, guys, I still feel the same. I feel bad because I do really think that Marlon Wayans gives like an awards-worthy performance, just not the right story. Like, I feel like if he had focused this energy and this performance on something else, like this would be a very interesting award season. But no shade to Jordan Peele, because once again, I understand, you need to diversify your projects. He couldn't get weapons, guys, so he had to do something else. And unfortunately, this is what he had. This is what he produced.
Shame.
It may grow on some people over time. I do think, despite how I feel about this film, I do think this is the kind of film that I feel could foster some sort of cult following in the future. We'll just have to see.
All right, and my recommendation is I do not recommend the movie Him. It gets a empty popcorn bucket for me as well. It has a pretty package, but it's like that nice bag of Doritos you want. Pretty package, and you open it up, it's only halfway filled with some chips, and most of it's just hot air and a waste of your time. So that's a wrap on Him. Thanks for everyone listening to the Cinefied Podcast. You can find more of our episodes as well as all of our written reviews on cinefied.com, including our review of Him written by Dempsey Peele. You can follow us on Letterboxd as well as all major social media platforms to stay up to date with our reviews. I want to thank Connor, Dempsey, and Kyle for jumping on the chat with me today. Now, everyone else, pop some popcorn, grab a drink, and remember to stay cinefied.